Welcome to Absolutely Not, the live podcast series dedicated to providing examples of setting personal boundaries at work and the vocabulary needed to name harm in those spaces. Thank y'all so much for being here today. Your continuous presence in this space helps me to grow an amazing community, and I cannot thank y'all so much. I cannot thank y'all enough, actually. The key words for this episode are feminism, justice, and exploitation. I encourage y'all to look up the definitions of these words and compare them to the definitions you carry with you on a daily basis. If you need help comparing, please let me know. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp allows you to connect with one of 24,000 licensed therapists in a safe and private online environment. You pay a low flat fee for unlimited therapy with your therapist. Visit www.betterhelp.com/absolutelynot for more information and to get 10% off your first month. This link can be found in the show notes. Today's episode is titled Centering My Truth. Ooh, I love it. I already love the vibes that's coming with the title of this episode. And that amazing title is brought to you by our amazing special guest, Sam M. Huisache, They, Them, Theirs. Sam is a materialist feminist writer living and working on Tonkawa, Comanche, and Apache land, now commonly known as Austin, Texas. They're passionate about social justice, sustainability, and creating a better future for all. Sam believes in speaking truth to power, interpersonal accountability, and transformative justice that centers our community's most vulnerable members. Wow. They identify as Black, Afro-Indigenous, Mexican-American, non-binary, chronically ill, and LGBTQIA plus affiliated. Woo! What a bio. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I love your whole mission. I love the outfit. For those of you who are listening to this via podcast, you need to check out the video because Sam looks amazing. Ooh, but I love that the title of this episode is Centering My Truth. Sam, why are we centering your truth today?
As somebody with a marginalized background, from the time you are able to understand language, people are trying to dictate what your feelings, thoughts, experiences, reality is. So I think it's important for those of us with that type of background to create our own self-narratives about who we are, what has happened to us, and how that influences our actions when we're out in the world.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm saying oh no because I'm like, oh wow, this is the work. That is the work right there. That's the work that all of us are being encouraged to do.
Yeah.
Sam, how that work sounds hard as fuck. Like, how do we even get started doing this work?
Oh yeah, to be perfectly honest, I had to hit like an emotional rock bottom for me to finally like lie in bed. I didn't sit with myself. I was lying in bed feeling very low and telling myself like I need to start putting myself first in every way or else it's going to end up killing me. So there for me there wasn't like, you know, a pretty epiphany where I was like eating lunch in a park and I was like, I'm gonna start working on myself. Like I had to experience a lot of pain and trauma to make that realization and just choose to put that little girl that I used to be like first and like think about like what did I want for myself when I still had, you know, like optimism and hope and kind of living a life that would make that little girl proud and happy to see. And I know that sounds corny, but that's exactly what has worked for me is like loving the child that I was and loving the child whose childhood got, you know, totally stolen from them in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna say, oh no, again.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into it. I'm crying because I mean a lot of y'all have heard all the episodes already, but oh, the words that are making me tear up is you said when I still had optimism, and use the word stolen as well. And just accepting that you had it and it was taken from you. Sam, when was it taken from you? Can we remember when it started being taken from you?
It's very sad to say, but you know, people think about like, what's your earliest memory? My earliest memory is moving to my hometown where I grew up when I was 2 years old. The next earliest memory is me getting knocked down because my parents were like having a fight. So my earliest memories are not very, pretty. Like it wasn't a trip to Disneyland or anything like that. It was, learning that, wow, I'm in for quite a ride. Like this life thing, there's a lot to take in. So I was maybe like 3 when that happened, and I have like a scar that I have to look at, when I do look at my legs, and that reminds me of that. So it started at an early age, just instance after instance of trauma, and that's why I have CPTSD, right? It wasn't just like one instance of trauma that like led to me having PTSD. It was several moments in life.
And I cannot thank you enough for sharing this with everyone. There are a lot of people out here or out there, let's say out there, who lack the understanding of what happens when you go through so many experiences over time and how that affects your ride. Mm-hmm. And Sam, you are still here going through that ride. What does your ride look like now? Does it look like your earlier years?
No, this is probably the most peaceful my life has been. I still have really, really bad days where I don't want to get out of bed, and I have to, remind myself of why I matter, because a lot of times when people hurt you, they're also sending the message to you that you're not valuable, like you're not important. So for me, it's about reminding myself why I'm here, letting myself know that people do love me and value me, and that I have something to contribute to the world. And just on a somatic level, a lot of resting. Like I love the nap ministry. Look them up, please, because I really think part of what's going to heal a lot of Black women, Black non-binary people is us resting, because when you experience trauma, so much of that is in your body. And I'm pretty sure the autoimmune diseases that I have are a result of all that trauma just like taking a toll on my body. And so being able to just sleep for weeks at a time, like I was grateful that a friend took me in and like let me just, I didn't work, I just was feeling my emotions and physically resting, and that like helped me actually get to a mental place where I could, start working on my independence again, and like figuring out who I wanted to be.
And I love that so much. We talk about so often how there's a huge need to extract your worth from your work. We live in a society where everything is tied to what title, how much money do you make. When people ask you what you do for a living, they're not asking like, what do you like to do? Or they're asking what your title is. Sam, have you been able to extract your worth from your work?
Yes, and that happened in the past year. Like very, very recently, I had to have, at first I had to learn boundaries. Like I barely learned like, okay, these are my boundaries, like within the past year. So this is new for me. And it's been transformational, but I've also had to, learn my work related boundaries, like what I'm not willing to do, what I'm not willing to accept. And a lot of that was around, how people communicate my worth at my job to me. Just like thinking back on the things I would accept from employers, this 2022 Sam would not tolerate that. I was like, you can't talk to me like that.
My goodness. And that, oh my gosh, even that is a whole something. Like I need to process that. How are other people communicating my worth to me? And
Yeah.
Sam, how were these people communicating that to you?
So microaggressions, like they're out here. And I think sometimes the way people are taught that it's okay to speak to others, they don't even realize what they're doing is like harmful. But a message that I kept getting from people since I was a kid was that you're kind of not very smart. You The type of intelligence that you have isn't, valuable. Like, it's not gonna make us money. But I would always see this happening where I would say something in Ave and it would be taken as like, oh, too casual. And then, somebody not Black would adopt that same language and everybody was like, oh wow, so groundbreaking, so innovative. So it was just like seeing that happen like repeatedly, where I just got fed up, because a lot, like at a lot of my like performance reviews, I felt like they were basically telling me like, you're stupid and you're lazy because you're refusing to take on the work of like three three people when you're just one person with chronic illness. So I refuse to let people tell me like that's what I am. Like I know what I am and I know what I'm not.
My goodness, I refuse to let people tell me that's what I am. Sam, if I had that affirmation years ago,
Yeah.
I I internalized so much of it. As soon as somebody was like, "Oh, you need to change," or "That's not how we do things around here. Why are you not being a team player?" I internalized a lot of it. Sam, have you ever internalized any of those messages they were trying to pass to you?
That's been one of my biggest problems in life, is internalizing everything people would say about me. Um, Even people who like I know don't matter, like people who I know like in the grand scheme of things have no effect on my life, I would let that stop me from doing what was right for me so many times, and not even necessarily think that they said, the fear of what they would say if I did a certain thing, like literally would make me shut down and not put myself first, with like, which led to more and more trauma. Is just like being afraid of not being this perfect person, because I think there's only so much room for somebody that sees as a Black woman to say no. Like, we're not really allowed to say no. It's, at least for me, like the way that I was raised to be alive for everyone else's benefit. Like, I wasn't put here to make myself happy. I was put here to make other people happy. So if somebody told me, oh, you're not doing what I want, I needed to do that. And so just like striving to be perfect, but you can't be perfect for multiple people, because everyone's definition of perfect is different, and you will make yourself sick trying to please everyone.
Thank you so much, because somebody needs to hear that. I need to hear that. But one of the headlines that it was flashing through my head right now is I just saw an article with the headline said, Black women are not Tylenol. Like, we're not, you can't do that. We will not be able to fix everything, be everything, do all of the things for people. And the fact that society has such a huge pressure on us to do that from a very young age is just, like you said, very detrimental. What practices have you put in place to remind people that, look, I'm not Tylenol. I will not be that for you.
Listening to my anxiety, like the book that I mentioned before I started recording, The Wisdom of Anxiety, it helped me learn what my anxiety is trying to tell me. Like I realized that I developed anxiety at like one of my darkest moments in life, because I think it was like my brain and my body trying to be like, you need to get out of this situation. But I was so focused on getting rid of the anxiety, I wasn't listening to what it was trying to tell me. And so now every time I do feel anxious, I try and sit with myself and really feel those feelings and ask myself, like, what is this telling me to do? And more often than not, being somebody who never listened to themselves, just the act of entertaining it, for like, just start entertaining those gut feelings. If you're the type of person who's always gone against what your gut's telling you, try it out. And you might find that you start to feel better. So in any instance where somebody was trying to, treat me like the old Sam, so to speak, I would say what I really wanted to say, what I had been holding back on saying for years. And people are going to push back. They're especially like with your parents, when you're trying to enforce boundaries with them, they might not like it, but it was necessary for me to stay alive, to start having those tough conversations that I was putting off, because I just wanted to be like the perfect child.
Thank you so much. And I think it's important, and you have reminded us throughout this whole episode, is like, this shit is not easy. Like, it's literally, we are making it, we're giving you a playbook, but it's so freaking hard, and it's going to be hard for every single person you have these conversations with. What I love, and that what I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life that you talked about, is entertaining your gut. So even if you're like, okay, that is like, that thought is way out of the way, like, no, that person doesn't mean harm to us, entertain it. Ask that person, like, hey, did you mean harm right there? And if they say yes, then you're like, oh shit, I learned something new about you today. Sam, have you ever entertained your gut and then had somebody confirm your gut?
So many times, like even throughout life, there's been moments where I'm like, I'm gonna test these waters of having boundaries, before I even knew what the word boundaries, like, in the context that it's commonly used these days, meant. I was like, I'm gonna try and have some. Yeah, but it would always be like one off, because usually the effect of that is that person, like, usually having like a blow up. Usually like the people that you need to have like the talk, about setting a boundary with, they're like the most likely to give you trouble. But the key to that is, well, I think there's two keys: showing yourself grace if you fall back on not, maintaining that boundary. But also be prepared for it too. So now I'm much more prepared for the pushback, and in a mental space where if this person says like really mean or hateful things to me in response to that I'm not internalizing that, and I'm like, okay, well, the boundary's been set, and that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna move on from this. But back in the day, like, I'd be like, oh, like you cheated on me, that hurt, I would not like to have that happen to me. A blow would happen, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm overreacting. I should really be centering you right now, I'm sorry. And then I would feel horrible for not being the cool partner, that's like, so yeah, wouldn't do that anymore, for example.
Oh, that is a perfect example of when that has occurred. And I'm so glad that you're not in that space anymore, because the harm continues. Like, that person who does not care about you, who is centering themselves, they do not care. They will continue to cause harm. Mm-hmm. Have you ever set a boundary in the workplace and then found out, oh, y'all do not care about me, and had harm continue?
Oh, yeah. So, and this is actually related to like, like three things I think everybody should know about boundaries in the workplace is that I didn't know my rights as an employee when it came to harassment, unsafe work environment, abuse, retaliation. I had no idea. And I was 25, which, I think there were a lot of people who hear that age and be like, you should know. But I think now that I say this, I bet a lot of people are like, I've never looked at the laws around that. And I realized 3 years later, past the statute of limitations, that I actually had a lot of rights. But I was in a situation where I was being abused at work and outside of work by a coworker that I was dating. And it got way out of control. And so I did the thing that I thought I should do and like try and like reach out to my manager, reach out to HR, and to say it like, as concisely as possible. They did not really take my concerns seriously. I remember the HR professional that was on the phone with me asked me why I was crying when I was talking to her about yeah, like, why are you crying? They basically brushed it off as like, oh, you guys just had a bad breakup, and just basically ignore the fact that there was like physical abuse and intimidation and things like that. So I kind of like, I felt so bad after that. I felt like like a bad person, and it doesn't help that this person was constantly telling me like, you're a bad person, you're a snake. And I'm wearing snake earrings today because I'm kind of like that was like something that I would hear in my head a lot from him, and I was kind of like trying to reclaim that, like, sure. But there's so much pressure on people to be a perfect victim, and when you're not, people are so nasty and dismissive of you. And part of like centering my truth is just, I know what happened. I'm not going to be ashamed of what happened, and I'm not going to be silent about what happened because it makes certain people uncomfortable. Because when I went to get help and do the right thing, no one was really there to help me. They just wanted to sweep everything under the rug. I had to sit at work in the same room as him and try and be productive. So that was like a bit like a huge event in my life for me, where I realized like, wow, what inkling of optimism I had about this world, I don't have it anymore. And that's why I'm a feminist with a capital F now, because that helped me realize like it's hard to get justice out here for things that happen behind closed doors. And when you don't have that, one of the best things you can do for yourself is centering your truth about what happened and going out in the world and not apologizing for that, and giving yourself grace for not being some, just like, not like, it's not human to react to that type of stuff and be like, I'm fine. I will heal on my own. I'll read a book. I'll go to the 3 free therapy sessions that my job offers, and I'm fine now. I'll never cry. I'll never yell at anyone. Like, I'll never have a panic attack. I'm just fine now. That's what's expected of you. So yeah, I went on that tangent, but like, yeah, that was like the first big instance of me realizing that a lot of workplaces don't have survivor spats.
I cannot thank you enough for sharing this instance with us, because oh my gosh, there are so many people who are going to immediately be like, oh shit, that's exactly what I'm going through right now. I'm literally going through it. First of all, let me backtrack. Whoever the fuck that HR person was, please call me. Like, I have some words. I have some words for you. And secondly, if you were an HR person or a person in a leadership position who is listening to this, that's not how you do it. Like that. Oh my gosh. That is not how you do it.
It was extremely dehumanizing.
I can't even imagine. Like, even in the state, like you're asking somebody for help. Uh, okay, I will process that on my own time. But my favorite part about that is how much grace you have given yourself since then. Of all of the descriptions you talked about, like sitting on the beach and be like, wow, I have really moved past this trauma. I think of white women, all the like, and those are all the depictions were given on what healing looks like, on what these mental health conditions look like, on what trauma looks like. They
Mhm.
don't see us when they talk about trauma or in the workplace. So
Yeah.
ah, thank you so much for being an example for people who need it. Um, okay. Was there anybody during that time who was your support system, who helped you move past it and helped you not to internalize all that bullshit?
Um, Honestly, people tried to help. I had a few friends who tried to help. Um, but they like I needed a therapist. And I needed like physical support, like somebody to be there with me in ways that like friends can, like like maybe like a close family member or something to come and stay with me. But most importantly, I needed the support of my employer. That's what I needed. Like I really needed them to make me feel heard and like protected and like valued as more than a commodity. There's a really good organization called Free From. They've personally have helped me, and they're all about like creating laws so that employers have a legal obligation to support their employers that go through any sort of domestic violence, um, especially financially, because again, like you can't have like an eat pray love kind of moment when you got to pay bills. You can't heal from abuse when you have to put on this brave face and sit at a computer for like 8 days. You just can't. I mean 8 hours for 8 hours a day. It's just like it's impossible. But that didn't happen. So I'm like one of like the things I'm passionate about now is like telling employers that like you can't just pretend that like your employees are going to have like these perfect lives outside of work. Like what are you going to do when an employee comes to you and says like, my partner's been abusing me, I need help. And I think a lot of times too, when they find that out, they don't really do anything to help, and that makes me really sad. So we need like benefits just beyond like health insurance and like PTO. It's like what plans do we have in place for when an employee is going through a crisis? And then like kind of ask yourself like, why haven't we ever thought of this before? Like why isn't this something, like it's sad that when we think about crisis management, we don't think about like employee crisis management. We think about like, oh, somebody's like hacked our systems or something. There's a PR fiasco, but like what about employee personal crisis management?
Hmm. And it, we talk about support systems so much on the show, and I love that you're expanding it. Like this is a whole multiverse, but in actuality, the employer's been there the whole time. Like you supposed to be part of this foundation that we're building because I work here 40 plus hours a week. Like y'all can bring support, a little bit of support. So I love that. And you talked about policies like that PTO or bereavement or whatever. Like who is that catering to? Is it catering to the household that has two parents and two children, or is it catering to the single mother? Is it like who are y'all catering to in these policies? So
Mhm.
very important to think about. So thank you so much.
Mhm.
I I love that you shouted out. Well, I love that you broke down what you needed during that time. And that's something that everyone, I hope, is thinking about and is going to write down, like, what do I actually need? My friends can only do so much. My can only do so much. They only have so many certifications or whatever. So you're definitely going to need professional help if you get into a situation like that. Is there anybody specifically, maybe a friend that you want to shout out specifically on the show?
Oh yeah, of course. So Tammy Jackson, which was like a previous guest of yours, she I think I maybe had met her like once before that. So she really had no reason to like take this like weirdo, like red face, puffy eyed, like depressed person into her home. But I met her through a coworker of mine. And I went over to her house and she like made me breakfast and she was just like, she was like there to tell me like, hey, you know, your feelings are valid. Like I told her what happened and she's like, your feelings are valid. And whoever is telling you that they aren't, you need to not listen to them. Like put yourself first. Did I listen to her? No, like I wanted to, but I was still really stuck in those habits and those thought patterns where I was like, I gotta make everybody else happy. I gotta be the Sam people want me to be. You know, since then I realized that no matter how hard I try to please other people, somebody's not gonna like what I'm doing. So the best way to do it is to be who I want to be. And you know, people don't like it. I mean, I'm sorry you don't understand the allure of Sam. Like, and this is who I am.
This is who I am. And shout out Tammy Jackson. Like, she,
The
that's a
best.
force. That's like in a good way. But it's also a reminder that what we do affects other people. Like, if she had not been strong during that time, you know what I mean, and told you like, this shit's valid, like we need to press forward. I mean, that's something that you carry with you to this day. And there are people in my life when I was in crisis, like I definitely did not listen to them during that time, but um now they reach out and they're like, wow, you got through that. And I'm like, it's because of you. Like, your words ring true. I am still here because of you.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing all that you have today. This was really, really not, I don't want to use the word inspiring. What I want to use is illuminating. Like, employers, y'all need to do better. Like, this is something that happens a lot. I'm not
a lot. I think I posted stats on it one day on LinkedIn about like the number of women who experience abuse while, you know, being employed. And it was a lot. I don't want to misquote the number, but it was a lot. And I remember saying like, look at this big ass number. We need to do something about this.
So if you are in a leadership position or you write policies or you know somebody that write policies, ask them what crisis plan, I love that, crisis plan do they have for their employees. If it only consists of 2 steps, like, oh, somebody's in crisis, get them the EAP card. That's not enough. That does nothing. Also, how much crisis training do the professionals that are a part of the crisis plan have? Because I cannot get over that HR person. Stop crying.
Right.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, okay. Thank you so much for everything you have shared today. I know there are a lot of people who are going to listen to this and be like, okay, my feelings are valid. I'm going to talk to these people about the things that I need in this workplace. What would be the top 3 tips you would share with them about what they need in order to have those conversations?
Like I said before, know your rights. Look up the harassment laws, the unsafe work environment laws, the abuse and retaliation laws in your state as well as your city, because some cities have protections that the state does not. Please do that and know your rights, and don't be afraid to act on it. If you like personally feel like you're in a situation where you need to do something, like DM me and I will be there to be like do the thing. 2, be yourself. You know, your boundaries are a part of who you are. So be yourself and honor those boundaries. When something happens to you and you don't like what's going on, be yourself and say, I don't like that. And then 3, find a support system, or, try and be a part of a support system where you can support each other. For me, I really needed a therapist as a part of my support system, but a support system can also be a support group, because a lot of support groups are free for folks that can't necessarily afford a therapist. They can also be like-minded coworkers, friends, and family. You really just need a safe space to open up to people about what you're experiencing at work or in your private life, where you can have your feelings and thoughts validated, and then kind of come up with a plan on what you want to do about those thoughts and feelings.
Oh, amazing tips. Somebody is going to have some conversations on Monday. You can wait till Monday. You can wait till Monday. But thank you so much for sharing all of those amazing tips and everything that you've gone through, so that less people will have to go through harm because of this experiences that you've shared today. Are there any last minute sprinkles that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, so like I said, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'm always here to help people learn from my experience. For so long, I felt ashamed for, again, not being the perfect victim. And for being a person who cusses, for being a person who has had panic attacks in public or in front of other people. I've cried a lot in front of others. So I'm just here to help people, show grace to themselves that they always show to others. And I'm here to be a help. I am Sam M. Huisache on LinkedIn. I should be the only Sam M. Huisache on LinkedIn, but feel free to reach out.
And their information will be in the show notes. So feel free to look through the show notes, and it'll be easy to click and look at their profile. So thank you so much for being here. To everybody who is listening, please take all this with you. One of the biggest things I'm going to be taking with me is not allowing people to communicate my worth to me. I'll communicate it to you, sir. And if we need to have a conversation, we will. But please take that with you and keep saying absolutely not to everything unaligned. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Absolutely Not. Your support means the world to me. You can always further support the show by leaving a review or visiting the Support the Mission page on my website, www.katrinastroll.com. My website is also where you can register for upcoming live episodes, watch amazing past episodes of Absolutely Not, and buy Absolutely Not merch. Yay! Until next time, keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to anything unaligned. See you next time.